If you're passionate about Hollow Knight, you know how hard it is to find another game that captivates you in the same way that feeling of solitude, mystery, and discovery that only a good Metroidvania can deliver. But the good news is that recently, several incredible new games have emerged that promise to fill that void, and who knows, maybe even surpass some of the experiences we had in Hallownest. Today, I've selected 10 new games that capture all that dark, challenging, and engaging vibe that we love so much. Some of them focus on deep narratives, others bring intense combat and meticulously constructed worlds, but all have that spirit that goes straight to the heart of Hollow Knight fans. Let's go! Velaster appeared on my radar as that Metroidvania for those who lived Hollow Knight intensely and miss new dark worlds full of exploration and risk. The game's atmosphere is brutal and gothic, with degraded scenarios and enemies that seem to have come out of bad dreams, which makes each new region visited feel like a disconcerting discovery, a mix between the strange and the fascinating. It has that just one more corridor vibe, but each advance requires patience, timing, and reading the enemies in a tense dance of trial and error. The combat is pure delight for those who like challenging action, carved in the Souls-like style. The enemies attack with a pattern, demand dodging at the right time, and each boss becomes a lesson in observation, research, and persistence. The physics of the blows are heavy, there is blood, dirty particles, and impact. It's not a game of button mashing, but of feeling the rhythm of the battles. Velaster punishes you, but also delivers the visual catharsis when you win, and this feeling of overcoming grows with each new challenge surpassed. The world of Malum is built to be explored in multiple ways, in interconnected areas that are revealed little by little here. The map is both a puzzle and an invitation to curiosity. You can feel the influence of the classics, but there is also novelty in the 3D visual and the dark medieval style. Progress is made on the basis of upgrades, and each boss becomes a key to new regions, as if always on the edge of the unknown. What I found cool is the studio's commitment to the fans, the financing campaign, constant presence on social media, and openness to feedback show that the game is being polished together with the community. The developers listen to those who ask for more sound impact, more weight in the fights, and adjustment in the difficulty. This creates expectation not only for the launch, but for the potential evolution of the game. Velaster offers that package that makes for easy video content, grotesque bosses, scenarios with a strong atmosphere, dense soundtrack, and an authentic vibe that promises to engage those who like root Metroidvania. Its aesthetics and variety of combats yield impactful thumbnails, and the replay factor is guaranteed by the difficulty and the secrets scattered around the map. For those who record content and like to discuss the evolution of demos, there is plenty of material for debate. For those who miss dense challenges like Hollow Knight, this game has everything to be more than just another Metroidvania. It could very well become the new darling of the series' orphans. Forgotlings is a Metroidvania that, even though it's not as talked about as some big names in the genre, deserves special attention, especially for those who like that cinematic vibe with a deep narrative and a touch of dark fantasy. The game takes place in the Forgotten Lands, a magical universe where forgotten objects gain life and meaning, which already creates a unique and charming identity different from the underground and dark worlds we are used to. In the shoes of Fig, a conscious newborn Forgotling, you will embark on a journey to unite 5 forgotten tribes against a threat that could destroy the entire region. This brings to Forgotlings a dense and emotional narrative, which tries to explore themes such as purpose, destiny, and living with differences. Something that goes far beyond just jumping and attacking on an interconnected map. This narrative layer is what caught my attention in the game, especially because it is a kind of spiritual continuation of the acclaimed Forgotten Anne, famous for its art and animations that moved many people. Visually, Forgotlings is simply stunning with its hand-drawn 5D graphics and scenarios that mix the natural and fantastic world. Some scenes and animations are very reminiscent of cinematographic works, which delivers an experience similar to an interactive film, a vibe that makes me compare it a lot with Journey or Ori, but with its own and more adult bias in the aspect of the story. The gameplay of Forgotlings goes beyond the typical Metroidvania exploration, combining elements of hack-and-slash-action with stealth and minigames, a mix that aims to vary the rhythm and keep the experience fresh throughout the hours. The promise of a semi-open map suggests that the exploration will have freedom and choices, which always excites me, because in these moments, the challenge is to create a world that makes you want to come back and unravel secrets. Forgotlings is not just another Metroidvania. It is an adventure that bets on the poetry of oblivion and redemption with a lot of art and emotion. Whoever liked the universe of Forgotten Anne or wants something that mixes Metroidvania with a rich narrative needs to give it a chance. Scrabdackle is that Metroidvania that you didn't even know you needed, especially if you enjoy magical worlds with a unique hand-drawn style and a charm that resembles an old storybook. You control Blue, a novice wizard who is literally thrown out of the Magic Academy and needs to fend for himself in a huge and unknown world, full of secrets and curious creatures. Right off the bat, the art made with traditional animation techniques is an invitation to get lost in that universe that mixes cuteness with real challenges in a very different way from the dark and melancholic style of Hollow Knight, but still with that strong indie appeal. What I found impressive in Scrabdackle was how the combat balances difficulty and fun. It's a lighter Souls-like, with challenging bosses and enemies that require anticipation and precise movement. No button mashing without thinking. You have to master the use of spells, dodging timing, and switch spells at the right time, which makes everything fluid, and rewarding for those who like a technical touch in combat. Even so, there is an assistant mode for those who prefer to enjoy the story and explore without so much pressure, which expands the potential audience of the game. Exploration is another highlight, with an open world that you can visit in practically any order, which brings replayability and the feeling of total freedom in discovering every corner of the map. The world of Scrabdackle is full of eccentric characters, subplots, missions, and hidden locations, which makes me think about how it can yield a lot of content for videos, from first impressions to theories and exploring every detail of the lore. I loved the way the menu and some interactions bring a subtle humor, which softens the tension of the challenges and creates light and funny moments. This seems to me part of the game's personality, moving it away from that almost oppressive weight common in the more hardcore Metroidvanias, and provoking an affection for the protagonist and his hardships that equals the narrative appeal of the gameplay. Scrabdackle is really that title for those who want something fresh in the Metroidvania, with an indie soul, an enchanting artistic direction, and a balance of combat that challenges without punishing mercilessly. If you enjoy exploring magical worlds, unraveling secrets, and want a game with a more cheerful and light vibe, it should be on your list right now. It's the kind of game that delivers deep experiences and still manages to bring a smile with its unique way. Grime II is the highly anticipated sequel to the Souls-like Metroidvania released in 2021 that won fans with its tense setting, technical combat, and unique visual. Here, you take on the role of a Formless, an artistic entity that absorbs forms of defeated enemies to obtain their abilities, a mechanic that returns and is expanded, promising even more diversity in strategy in combat. The development shows care in maintaining the spirit of the first game, but expanding everything: larger maps, more bosses, greater customization capacity, and varied combat possibilities. What I see different and very promising in Grime II is how it wants to bring a vibrant world full of diverse cultures, leaving behind the feeling of desolation of the previous game. The setting, although still dark and artistic, is more colorful and full of life, which creates an interesting contrast with the brutality of the combat and the tension of the battles. The game also adds a lot of environmental interaction, allowing the environment to be used both in your favor and against you in the fights, something that should bring freshness and dynamic rhythm to each encounter. In combat, the ability to absorb and invoke molds of defeated enemies returns with full force, giving freedom to experiment with different styles and customize your character as you prefer. For fans of the system of the first game, there is also an emphasis on more flexible parry and builds focused on defense and counterattacks, which maintains that Souls-like feeling that pleased so much. The game brings more options for short and melee combat, as well as for ranged attack and invocations, opening the range for multiple ways to play. Exploration has gained new mechanics, including movements such as sliding on walls and ceilings, which should make the map much more dynamic and vertical, adding a dose of platforming and tactical movement that will spice up the usual experience of classic Metroidvanias. This increase in complexity and movement promises to please players who seek challenge and variety without getting frustrated. In addition, the world is filled with memorable locations and diverse characters, strengthening the aspect of narrative immersion. One of the things I admire most in the Grime universe is the way combat requires patience and appreciation for timing. Unlike many games in the genre that focus on quick reflexes, this feeling of feeling the weight of the attacks and their risks, combined with the artistic elements that make everything even more disturbing and fascinating, continue to be the great attraction. Grime II seems that it will refine this recipe and expand the aspects that made the first enter the list of the most striking Souls-like in the Metroidvania. For those who enjoy more abstract narratives and a universe caused by the fusion between art and body horror, Grime II promises to deepen this in 2026, offering a continuation that not only respects its predecessor, but wants to stand out more and more with a larger world, more complex strategies, and visceral combats. If Hollow Knight caught you for the atmosphere, prepare for a darker and more brutal experience that Grime II is sharpening for its debut. Trizna is that classic 2.5D Metroidvania, loaded with a strong plot that grabs you from the beginning, perfect for those who love the balance between narrative and challenging combat. You play as a fallen warrior, not buried as tradition dictates, created by a powerful ancestral witch who transforms him into a tool full of mystery and power to carry out her will. This mystical atmosphere already gives a dark and captivating tone that catches the eye right away. What marked me in Trizna is the emphasis on intense combat, which uses weapons with unique characteristics, but that goes far beyond simple brawling. It is a system that values dodges, parries, and counterattacks, requiring the player to precisely read the patterns of the enemies and exact timing, a true invitation to fans of the Souls-like style within the Metroidvania. This creates battles that are always on the edge, super rewarding when you get the strategy right. Graphically, the game bets on 2.5D with a clean and fluid visual in the modern classic style, which delivers that smooth three-dimensional effect in the design of the environments and characters without losing the charm of the 2D drawings. This creates an interesting immersion, where each region has personality, and the feeling of progression is closely linked to discoveries of new areas and alternative paths. The exploration is direct, with interconnected maps that require attention to be able to revisit places and unlock shortcuts. After all, as in any good Metroidvania, the progression is given by learning and expanding the character's abilities. This facet reminds me of the addictive feeling of returning to areas and enabling new routes, which yields good moments of, now I can pass through there, and the satisfaction of connecting all the points on the map. For me, the narrative proposal also reinforces the appeal for those who like denser and more mystical stories. The universe of the witch, the curse of the protagonist, and the mysteries around create a journey that is not just combat, but also discovery and an engaging tale. This adds that charm that makes us feel that we are really inside a living and sinister world, full of lore to explore in the middle of the intense battles. Trizna is scheduled for release in 2025 and is already available in demo, with positive feedback focused on its combat mechanics and narrative, which makes it clear that it is a winning title for those looking for a Metroidvania loaded with feeling, technique, and a dense universe. If you are one of those who appreciates Hollow Knight for its challenge and atmosphere, Trizna should be on your list of next games without a doubt.
And even when the stars seem far away, I can't be blinded by the dark. Yes, I won't be blinded by the
Mariachi Legends is that Metroidvania that mixes fast and brutal combat with a rich aesthetic and pixel art, set in the heart of Mexico and breathes Mexican culture in every bit of the map. You play as Pablo Cruz, a detective who makes a pact with death to take a powerful amulet and save the Day of the Dead, and this already gives an epic and dark touch to the narrative, which fits perfectly for those who like worlds with deep lore and intense atmosphere. What caught my attention is how the game treats Mexican culture not only as a superficial theme, but as the soul of the gameplay and the story. The visual style is vibrant and detailed, with scenarios that capture from the beauty of sunny days to the tension of the night full of dangers and the Mariachi Legends gang. The alternation between day and night is not only visual, but completely changes the feeling and the challenges, which brings freshness and dynamics to exploring the city of Santa Mascota. In combat, Mariachi Legends delivers what the guys who enjoy Metroidvania and beat 'em up love. Agile fights, elaborate combos, strategic use of weapons, and brutal finishes. Pablo is equipped with La Sombra, a mariachi suit that is almost a supernatural extension of him, guided by a sword that absorbs souls and can transform, giving a varied range of styles for you to adapt to any enemy or boss that appears in front. That feeling I'm running and I'm strategic at the same time appears strong in this title. The exploration is not left behind and combines challenge, platforming, and well-placed puzzles, with branched areas to unlock and hidden secrets, of course. The day-night cycle is used to create difficult alternative areas, encouraging the return and mastery of the map. This for me is essential because it maintains that addiction of just a little more and opens space for content such as walkthroughs, tips, and even challenges in videos. A point that seems very interesting to me is the toast to culture, with Mexican recipes and songs that pack your entire journey. It is an element of immersion that has everything to engage the audience of the channel, because it unites gameplay and pop culture in a fluid and charismatic way, something that is not so common in Metroidvanias, where the focus is usually more technical and less cultural. Mariachi Legends has a confirmed release for the second quarter of 2026 and promises to be that Metroidvania that adds not only combat and exploration, but a celebration of Mexican culture with its own identity. For those who are fans of Hollow Knight, whether for the unique atmosphere or the depth of the combat and exploration systems, Mariachi Legends deserves to be on the list of next games to look at carefully. Sealed Byte Extended is a Metroidvania that mixes a dark fairy tale vibe with a beautifully crafted pixel art style, perfect for those who enjoy platforms with engaging narrative and challenging gameplay. You control Amelia, a young woman whose life turns into chaos when her family begins to disappear mysteriously, and she needs to rely on a wolf spirit to seek answers and survive in this dangerous world. This plot already reminds me of those classic stories like Little Red Riding Hood, but with a modern twist and full of twists and turns. What most catches my attention in Sealed Byte Extended is how the game combines the challenge of platforming and combat with this somewhat melancholic, somewhat magical atmosphere. Time is an important element in the gameplay. You race against the clock to collect crystal fragments that prevent a dangerous transformation, which adds tension and urgency to each section. This accelerated rhythm brings that adrenaline that makes any Metroidvania fan get involved with the obstacles. Visually, the game bets on vibrant and detailed pixel art. With worlds that seem to have come out of an illustrated book, each scenario conveys a different emotion, and the characters have a design that helps to tell the story without needing so many words. For someone who likes videos showing unique atmospheres of indie games, Sealed Byte has enormous potential to enchant. The combat is simple but efficient, focused on dodging, quick attacks, and the use of special abilities that you will unlock along the journey. It's not that Metroidvania with multi-line complex combos, but it delivers a fluid and quite satisfactory experience for those who enjoy a more accessible yet intriguing challenge. The exploration is quite typical, with interconnected maps that require revisits as you unlock new abilities, in addition to a constant curiosity to discover all the secrets scattered around. The feeling of learning the terrain and advancing with knowledge always gives an addictive touch that cannot be missing for those who enjoy classic Metroidvanias and works very well to create exploration and tips videos. To close, Sealed Byte Extended brings everything that fans of the genre love: an engaging and emotional story, careful pixel art, precise platforms, and that rhythm that balances challenge and fun. If you are a fan of Hollow Knight for the beautiful and challenging world combined with a sensitive narrative, this game definitely deserves your focus. Aeterna Lucis is the sequel to the acclaimed Aeterna Noctis, bringing to fans a Metroidvania that maintains the frenetic pace of combat and the complexity of the interconnected map, but with an even more refined touch and an impressive visual inspired by stained glass and sacred art. Now, you control the Queen of Light, ready to face the supreme god Chaos and prevent the destruction of all existence, which gives an epic and weighty plot, something that for me elevates the game beyond pure action. One aspect that caught my attention was the depth of the gameplay, which combines agile platforming with fast and polished combat, bringing new abilities such as the 8-direction dash and maneuvers that test all your precision and agility. The feeling is that each movement has a purpose, and that the game rewards those who completely master the mechanics, precisely what Hollow Knight fans value so much. The movement, although a little difficult to master at the beginning, brings that satisfaction when you start to explore complex areas. The map of Aeterna Lucis is wide and full of secrets, with a lot of history scattered that increases the immersion, and the design of the levels varies between dark and grandiose areas, where each corner seems to have its own life. The exploration offers the classic return to areas with new abilities that opens the way for those classic aha moments that every Metroidvania needs to keep the player hooked. Another strong point that I highlight is the enormous variety of bosses, which are creative and memorable challenges, requiring your skill and patience. Visually, the game is amazing, with scenarios that refer to stained glass painting, creating a unique and breathtaking environment, with dynamic lighting and effects that reinforce the mystical and epic atmosphere of the narrative. For me, this aesthetic stands out among recent releases, as it is not only beautiful, but also helps to tell the story and set the player in this journey through light and darkness. In the narrative aspect, Aeterna Lucis deepens the universe introduced in the previous game with a more mature and expansive story where you explore the cycle of light and shadow, facing dilemmas that are not only battles but also symbolic and poetic choices. This creates an enriching experience for those who value a Metroidvania with emotional and philosophical content behind the gameplay. For those who enjoyed Hollow Knight for its combat style, detailed exploration, and unique atmosphere, Aeterna Lucis comes to deliver a polished, visually hallucinatory experience with a deep plot. It is that title that promises to be one of the most fun and intense of 2026, and that deserves the attention of any serious fan of the genre. Divine Guardian, developed by Young Buffalo, is a 2D Metroidvania set in the enchanted jungles of Vietnam, which mixes fluid combat and action with a mystical atmosphere full of local culture. You control a Divine Guardian with the mission to face mystical monsters and restore harmony to challenge the gods, which brings an engaging and different premise for those who like adventures under a spiritual and mythological bias. What impresses me most in Divine Guardian is the graphic work. All the art is hand-drawn, with smooth animations and rich scenarios that translate the colors and vibrant life of the Vietnamese forest. This visual richness creates an environment that not only celebrates the local culture, but also serves as a perfect stage for the intense rhythm of the game. The music and sound effects reinforce this immersive, mystical atmosphere, giving it its own sound identity. The combat system is not exactly the easiest, with a requirement of careful timing for dodges, attacks, and the use of dashes, which do not always offer invulnerability, requiring mastery to overcome enemies and challenging bosses. The movement may seem a little heavy at first, with large jumps and controls that demand practice, but those who enjoy this technical touch will find a reward in mastering the mechanics. The exploration in the game is expansive, with wide and complex maps that you will unveil as you acquire new abilities. The feeling of discovery is constant, and backtracking becomes part of the natural flow of the adventure, exactly what Metroidvania fans love, in addition to opening countless possibilities for videos of tips, secrets, and guides. A unique detail is the way the story and the world connect with Vietnamese folklore and myths, a differential that gives an original charm to Divine Guardian. This creates a narrative that is not just a backdrop, but a vital part of the immersion, enriching the experience and giving depth to explore. For those who enjoy Hollow Knight for the combination of refined combat, interconnected map, and unique environment, Divine Guardian emerges as a great choice for 2025, offering a different experience, but that should enchant with its handmade art, constant challenge, and rich atmosphere. It is really worth keeping an eye on the release and demos to know this title with its own identity from Young Buffalo. Savior is a Metroidvania that mixes action and adventure with an open world that asks to be explored intensely. In the game, you take on the role of Sam, a stranger who finds herself in the middle of a cold war between two powerful groups, the Chosen and the Fallen, and her mission is to gather forces to restore peace. The narrative brings an atmosphere of mystery and discovery, with a strong focus on exploring her origin while fighting to save the world. What most catches my attention is the dynamic and strategic combat, inspired by classics like Punch-Out!, where it is essential to learn the attack patterns of the enemies, master dodges, blocks, and counterattacks, creating an experience that is tense and rewarding at the same time. The game is not just button mashing, it requires timing and perception, especially when facing multiple opponents who try to surround you, which makes everything very challenging. The movement in Savior is fluid and full of style, with parkour that includes grabbing edges and running on walls, bringing a sense of freedom and agility that makes exploration a part of the fun. It's that kind of game that you can end up getting lost just to feel the fluidity of the controls and the pleasure of navigating the world. The setting makes the world of Arcadia seem alive, divided between light and shadow, conflicting beliefs, and complex characters. As for exploration, the map is vast and interconnected, with routes that open as you gain new abilities, much in the way a classic Metroidvania does, encouraging revisits and constant discoveries. This detail is great for creating content of maps, secrets, and mysteries that engage the audience. The setting, strongly influenced by the culture and folklore of the game's own universe, gives a very special charm. A personal touch. The balance between technical combat and narrative makes Savior a game that appeals both to those seeking a challenge and to those who like stories with layers. Seeing the evolution of the world while unlocking new abilities creates a flow that holds and motivates a lot. It is a feast for those who like to make videos exploring each side of the game. Overall, Savior should arrive for Metroidvania fans who enjoy fluid games with combat that challenges intellect and skill, a world that offers much to explore, and an intriguing plot. If you missed this type of Metroidvania that mixes strategic fighting and agile movement, this title deserves to be on your wish list.